How many hours of sleep would we require for each planet in the solar system? In certain space travel movies, it is depicted that the journeys are so long that the crew spends the majority of the time resting, or rather hibernating, in order to conserve energy until they reach their destination. Is it feasible to hibernate for so long in reality though? How long would we need to sleep on each planet if it were possible? Prepare to learn about it. Before starting our voyage across each planet in the solar system, we must dispel a misunderstanding. Why is sleep necessary? All creatures have a basic need for sleep. Humans require a minimum of 8 hours of sleep each day on Earth. Animals don't all sleep the same amount of time though. For instance, a grizzly bear can hibernate for 200 days, a sloth bear can sleep for up to 20, while ants only rest for a few seconds every now and again. Every animal sleeps for a specific period of time that varies depending on its needs and the habitat in which it evolved. As humans are diurnal animals, which means that we utilize the sunshine to do our activities and sleep at night, we only need to sleep for 8 hours each night. As a result, we cannot see in the dark since our eyes are designed to see during the day, not at night. So let's start our trip through the planets of the solar system. Mercury. Mercury is the planet that we start our adventure on because it is the smallest and nearest to the Sun. As a result, if we wanted to take a relaxing vacation on Mercury, we would have to do so underground. Mercury has extremely extreme climatic conditions. Its temperature varies greatly and directly correlates to how much sunlight it receives. For instance, areas under the sun's rays can reach 430 degrees Celsius, while areas in the shade or at night can reach -180 degrees Celsius. Due to the harsh conditions on the surface of Mercury, it is conceivable that humans will eventually colonize the solar system and will need to construct underground homes, similar like some insects like ants. Since a day on Mercury lasts 58 Earth days, we may be able to see an exceptional sunset when the sun never seems to set. After a protracted period of time, the human race would eventually adjust to the new environment, and our biological clock would undergo a significant adjustment. After many generations, people living on Mercury wouldn't need to sleep for just 8 hours like we do here, but rather for roughly a month. In this movie, we are obviously thinking about how many hours we sleep, presuming that in the future, after we have colonized the whole solar system, humans will have adjusted their biological clocks to the length of each planet's solar day. The gravity of each planet must also be taken into account when determining how many hours of sleep are necessary. The greater the gravity difference from the Earth, the harder it will be to adjust to the planet and the longer sleep is required. In this way, if we sleep for only 8 hours during a 24-hour day on Earth, we would need to sleep for roughly 28.5 Earth days if we were to go to Mercury, a planet with a solar day that lasts 58 days and a gravity that is lower than that of Earth. A solar day, keep in mind, is the length of time it takes for each planet to complete an orbit around itself. Venus. We proceed onto Venus, the hottest planet, after leaving the small planet behind. The atmosphere of this planet, which contains tremendous winds and substances deadly to all life, makes it the most unfriendly planet in the solar system. No living thing could survive there for even a moment, thus it is likely that we won't be able to build bases on its surface. As a result, any future trips to this planet will probably only last a brief time. There is a theory that suggests using airships filled with gas far lighter than the planet's clouds, like helium or even hydrogen, to move through Venus's dense and heavy atmosphere would be one way to go to Venus. These enormous airships would float forever in Venus clouds without the need for motors or propellers, since Venus clouds would always keep them above the dangerously hazardous environment for humans. The longest day is on Venus, which is also the only planet where a day lasts longer than a year. Venus has the longest day of all the planets. A year lasts 225 Earth days on Venus, whereas a day lasts 243 Earth days. In other words, Venus takes longer to turn around and face the Sun than it does to turn around and face itself. A fascinating fact about Venus is that it takes its atmosphere approximately 4 Earth days to circle the entire planet. In other words, the planet travels considerably more slowly than the atmosphere. Because the photos we took from the Earth only revealed Venus' outer clouds, not its surface, it was previously believed that its days were 4 days long. Because of this, if we were to spend our time on Venus in an airship that perpetually floats in the clouds, it would move at the same pace as the clouds. As a result, a floating hotel on Venus would need around 4 days to complete one complete rotation of the planet. In other words, we would bring about Venus' entire return in 4 Earth days, rather than waiting for Venus to spin on itself. So, if the human race modifies its biological clock to fit this pattern, we would require roughly 30 hours of uninterrupted sleep for each orbit of Venus. Mars. As a day on Mars lasts almost exactly 24 hours and 40 minutes like a day on Earth, life for colonies there would be considerably simpler. The only issue would be that since gravity is much lighter on Mars than it is on Earth, anybody who settled there would have trouble getting used to it. As a result, humans who settle on Mars must sleep for 8 to 9 hours per Martian day, which is not unusual. Do you know someone who already gets that much sleep each night? Speak with him, he might make a fantastic Martian traveler. Jupiter. We arrived at Jupiter, the gas giant planet that is the largest of all. Things will get difficult for humanity after this. Since it is a gaseous planet and does not have a solid surface like the Earth, it has harsh weather conditions. Jupiter is one of the gas giant planets, which are primarily composed of gas. That is to say, it would be difficult to build a base on those worlds. The only way we could establish ourselves permanently would resemble the airship settlement that was envisioned for Venus. Perhaps in the distant future, humanity will create enormous, elaborate floating space hotels made of airships loaded with an extremely light gas that can hover on the dense, heavy clouds of gaseous planets and house people for all eternity. The only way to live permanently on these surface-less planets would be in one of these floating space hotels. The clouds on Jupiter move quite quickly, similar to Venus. The planet with the shortest day is Jupiter. In Jupiter, a day barely lasts 9 hours, 55 minutes. We must also take into account the enormous gravity of Jupiter, making it difficult for us to acclimatize to prolonged stays there without sustaining permanent physical harm. The stunning vistas of the tornadoes and hurricanes that would pass underneath the floating hotel and the spectacular views of all the moons in the universe as they would rise one after another in the night sky would at the very least be the reward for the effort to adapt. The human race would only require 2 hours of sleep every day if, after many generations, they were able to adjust to Jupiter's crushing gravity and brief days. The significant moons of Jupiter are Ganymede, Europa, and Callisto. Human bases may be established on these moons as well. In fact, doing so would be considerably simpler on the moons of the gaseous planets than on the planets themselves. Would you like to know how much time we would need to rest on each gas giant's major moon? If you would want us to make that film, please like this video, ring the notification bell, and leave us a valuable remark. Saturn. Saturn is a gas giant like Jupiter, however it differs from Jupiter in that it has a weaker gravity and would be easier for mankind to adapt to. Saturn's days are similarly brief to Jupiter's, lasting only 10 hours, 33 minutes. As a result, as common sense would dictate, we would need to sleep for between 2 and 3 hours on Saturn, which is roughly the same amount of time we would need to relax on Jupiter. Since the winds on Saturn are not as intense as they are on Jupiter, there would be less noise, and we would be able to see the beautiful asteroid rings, which are a special feature of the solar system. Uranus. When we go closer to the edge of the solar system, we approach Uranus, the most inclined planet of them all. It is at this point that something spectacular occurs since Uranus is inclined 91 degrees with respect to the other planets. In other words, if we were to observe the solar system from the North Pole, it would appear that Uranus is laying down. As a result, a hotel that was floating in the planet's clouds would not experience seasonal changes for many years. This is due to the fact that one pole of Uranus constantly faces the sun as its solstices approach, but the other pole faces in the opposite direction. Only a small portion of the equator experiences a quick cycle of day and night, but with the sun positioned as low in the sky as in the polar portions of the planet. This results in approximately 42 years of non-stop sunlight at either pole of Uranus, followed by 42 years of darkness. 84 years or so to see a sunrise and a sunset. Our biological clock could not adjust to Neptune's cycles since they are longer than human life, unlike the other planets where the days and nights pass somewhat predictably. In light of all of this, it is highly conceivable that our sleep cycles will change in relation to those of the Earth if humans are able to establish themselves on this planet as they have on the others in the future. In other words, we would sleep on Uranus for exactly the same amount of time as we do on Earth, which is 8 hours. Neptune. We reach Neptune, the blue planet, the final planet in the solar system. We would be based in floating bases, like the other gaseous planets on Neptune. A day on this planet has 16 hours. If the biological clock of the human race were to adjust over time, it would be sufficient for us to sleep for 4 to 5 hours per day of Neptune. There is only one thing that could undo all of this on this planet. Neptune possesses the strongest winds in the entire solar system, with gusts up to 2,000 kilometers per hour. We'd have to discover a mechanism to stop that from happening, else one of the floating bases might be blown to bits by these strong winds. What did you think of this solar system tour? Would you be interested in learning how much sleep humans require on the dwarf planets or the larger moons in the solar system? Share your thoughts with us in a thoughtful remark.